Okay. My topic is playful and gameful learning process in school, and I think that I talk more about theoretical and pedagogical issues compared to earlier presentations. First, we can start with a question. How can we use gameful and playful learning practices in schools to respond to students' everyday lives and 21st century skills? And as a starting point in educational field, we know that we have to recognize that youth are learners who have their own perspectives and experiences, and that these constitute valid knowledge bases and resources for formal education. And we also note that there is a need to acknowledge the ways people learn effectively in everyday practices. And finally, we need to note that there is need to diversify pedagogical approaches in ways that new media, along with games and students' experiences and knowledge can promote their learning. And as outlined, and the kind open questions for us, I have asked also, what might young people's informal learning experiences then teach us about learning in general and playful learning? And what is the role of games and playful learning in education? And what are the theoretical grounds for using games and providing playful learning experiences in school settings? And finally, what role might the teacher play in various playful learning processes? And one perspective to learning is provided by the term learning ecology, and it refers to the idea that people participate in multiple social worlds using diversity of tools and social practices, which are usually also related to one content of interested area. For example, this is my younger son who is playing guitar, and who is the teacher? YouTube video in this case. Before we go to thinking about games in education and in curriculum-based teaching, I will give you one example from everyday experiences. And this is a young boy who is freestyle skier, and the important thing here is that the environment where he is learning constitutes of media spaces as well as physical places. And as I see, this can be an example of iterative playful learning process. The activities constitute of belonging, practicing, creating, playing games, and sharing. And this boy is a part of a local and global community of learners. He's practicing in authentic settings. Almost every day is it possible. He tried to study new tricks on the slope and so on. Creating refers to content creation, just as video recording and editing videos and sharing those videos on web. On Vimeo, for example, example or on YouTube. And what is interesting in this case is that this process also consists of playing games. For example, Shred Sauce is a game designed for freestyle skiers. And these guys play for fun and also for mentally practice the tricks in action. And some notions about this kind of playful learning process. First, this process and example shifts seeing learning as individual more to learning more as participation in social worlds. And second, all these spaces, virtual and physical spaces, enable some way learning to be playful and creative. And finally, engagement and joy of learning are very typical to this kind of learning processes. Okay, what is then playful learning? One way to define it is that a learning process can be called playful when it consists of a playful attitude, engagement, and learning through play and games. In my earlier research work on playful learning environments, I defined playful learning in a way that it includes following features, and one is creativity. And it refers to the idea that knowledge building is creative activity. And it refers to learning creatively by using new technology and designing artifacts and games or media products. Another feature is playfulness. A playful attitude towards learning and playful engagement. Narrativity refers to a mode of thinking, our mode of narrative thinking to make sense of our learning, and it's seen as a key aspect of meaning making. Collaboration refers to knowledge co-creation and collaborative design, and also to play processes. And because all human activity involves emotion, and emotions also play a key role in learning. And embodiment refers to learning through the whole body. And finally, media richness refers to the idea that technology and media are seen as a natural part of learning processes. And then some words about theoretical standing points. From sociocultural theories of learning, there is a couple of concepts that are very important in our research. And first, there is learner identity. And identity refers to the idea that learning is a process of becoming a certain person, and it's not only acquiring skills and knowledge. And agency refers to act accountably and authoritatively in learning processes, and sense of agency is awareness of your choices when you are gaming or studying something. Tools and boundary crossing are other concepts, and tools refers to the idea that learning is mediated always by cultural tools like games, and boundary crossing refers to the idea that building bridges between different worlds is important. Then, if we think about games in education and in teaching, we can think that games are affordance for agency and identity construction. And one example is a career board game where students can experience various life paths and become familiar with Finnish school system. And when we have researched these small games while students are playing the game in the small groups, we have found that in addition to students' identity talk, they also have the talk like a technical talk which relates to the rules of the game and strategic talk which refers to play strategies and also general life talk. And the role of the teacher in this process is important because he is the person who can promote knowledge co-creation, for example, and discuss about important issues that the students want to talk in the situation. And this game process can be also called playful because it consists of creativity and imagination combined with narration and emotions. Games can also be seen as boundary zones of time and spaces and places. And here are two continuums, virtual, physical, and formal and informal. And I think that most of the games can be located somewhere between these continuums. Then a few words about playful learning process, and this is based on theoretical and pedagogical. Before that, I have one slide about what if you think about games in education, that there could be two perspectives to these processes, and one is game design process and the other is game play, the action process. And the scale is in right direction because I think that still there is more game play in school than game design. But both of these perspectives are important. And then about pedagogical model. There is pedagogical level. I don't think that you can see the words, but here is a theoretical level, and pedagogical level includes goals, curriculum, of course, and facilities and tools, available tools. And the whole process consists of the components of orientation, gameplay, and elaboration. And this model is based on my earlier research work on playful learning environment, that is technology-enriched playgrounds. And when students have created games to that environment or only play the games. Okay, but this orientation phase, in this phase, knowledge base is created, and for example, expected learning outcomes are reflected. And gameplay is action phase, and elaboration is the phase when students and the teacher can reflect and evaluate of the processes and games. The components of teaching include pedagogical framing, organization, implementation and facilitation and evaluation. And this whole process is larger if there is also game design phase. And the main idea is that a teacher is the main organizer who have to design this pedagogical entity when games are using in teaching. And knowledge is created in small groups and in the whole group level. Then about the role of the teacher. The teacher have many roles in this kind of learning processes, such as pedagogical expert, organizer, co-creator, guide, facilitator, promoter, coach, and improviser, and so on. Teacher is also tutor, which can include following things. Teacher enable communication, for example, by using experts and peers who serve as researchers in the process. Tutoring also can include using analogies to identify similarities between situations and allowing the use of mental, imaginary and possibility thinking relating to creativity and creative learning. Tutoring can also include promoting exploration and validation ideas, both in small group working and in whole class level. When applying playful learning in curriculum-based education, it's also important to define what skills and competencies we expect to students to develop during the processes. And in addition, it might be important to estimate how a game or a playful learning process serve 21st century skills, such as deeper conceptual understanding and creative and critical thinking, or participation and negotiation skills, or problem solving and decision making skills, and information media and technology skills, or in general level life and career skills. Okay, and as conclusion, it's natural that new research is needed, and we need to know how to teachers' role as a tutor should be defined and designed and understand better. We also need research to develop pedagogical models further, so that they can better respond to 21st century requirements. And we also need to create novel services that are needed to help educators to bridge different settings and create learning environments for meaningful game-based learning. Was I too quick? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should take a look to the Twitter flow, because there is some interesting questions. Mm-hmm. Do you want to comment some of these?
Playful learning is agree. Okay. Why? There is why question. Okay.
In my point, there's an interesting thing what Nicola says, that should we again rise in the front the defining what's game, what's engagement, and what is learning, and should we handle these two in separated way?
You mean that games and learning separated?
Understand as you
yes.
will.
I think that no. If I represent, of course, educational field, and if we think that games are the tools we can use in education, I think that it's very important to study how game-based learning and learning through games can serve young people's learning, and how we make a learning like omnipresent, and we recognize and acknowledge that everything they learn in informal settings is important, and to take into account in schools.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because Thomas Henriksson, for example, has talked a lot of the game time reflection, and that's the issue when we try to measure some skills or doings inside of the game, or what skills the game produce. And your side is that the whole learning should be playful, as Nicola was writing in the tweet flow.
Yeah.
And the tension of this between these two things, what is game? What's the engagement of the game? And one of those tweeters said that is it a new Pavlov way to get children in the learning environment and situation and get them to learn? Or is it something more? My question is it game learning at all what we would talk about? Is there something bigger which need to define?
Yeah, I think that this figure may give some ideas, that it's about a learning ecology, where gaming can be one part. It's just in schools, I think.
Would you, Nicola, put this thing little more stricter what you wrote? What do you mean?
I think it's probably a definitional point, but for me, games and play are related but not the same. So you can have games that are not playful. I'm thinking, for example, an international chess championship. There's not a lot of play going on there. It's deadly serious. Also, you can have play that is not a game, and playfulness that's not a game. So it's really, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I think it's about, these are two different things and they overlap. And I showed a little model this morning of kind of a Venn diagram, which was saying actually, for me, games is about action and engagement and play. And that was how I like to look at it. And I think the other point that I made in one of the other tweets was that, and I don't think you're saying this, but that does all learning need to be playful? There are times when learning can be serious as well, and that's fine. And different people learn in different ways. That was it.
Yeah, maybe playful refers to mostly to attitude and the kind of engagement. Yeah. like this. Okay.
Yeah, to my experience, I would divide learning into two parts, like the kind of rote learning where you try to learn some particular skill and you do it, repeat and repeat. But then if you want to really go deeper into something and understand something, then the learning needs to be playful. Do you agree?
Yes, if you think your own learning in your life, it's just so. When you you have interest to the issue and you are engaged, so it's produce joy of learning, and that's the one main point in playful learning processes, that you enjoy. But of course, like any other emotions, that joy of learning is not only positive feelings, it can also be hard work and so on. Cause frustrations for a while. But of course, you said about games that some games can be very not good games. But I talk about games which are good for in an educational framework, of course. There are many games that maybe don't can be in this sphere.
First of all, I have to say that I really agreed with your conclusion points. They're excellent. But that thing, and together with Mauri's question about should we take maybe a step backwards and see what we can change maybe before, or Nicholas, sorry, really made me to think, and I would like to invite all of us here, if we can think together, what is this thing that has to be put to pieces in a way to understand this ecology of learning, really, because it can be different for anyone, for a different situation, for a different institution, for a different purpose. And if you can go back, please, to the conclusion points. I was thinking that maybe one way to do it is just see what are the things that have to be realized first and 1 second. So first of all, do we first educate the teachers to think differently, or do we create the services, novel services, which would act as sort of aids for the teachers to create new ideas, or what comes first to create this? Because if one is created and the other one is not, the system falls apart, and this cannot work.
Both are important, of course, and teacher education is there. Everything have to start there, from there.
And then what would be to teach the teacher? Because what I can rationalize now is that the role of the teacher is not necessary to be more than just that he or she is a inspiration. He's an inspiration and guide for other people to get inspired. Is there something more to it?
Yeah, I mean, this is very big question and very challenging, of course. But one point in our current research project, that is OmniSchool, is that teachers could also use other experts when they think that they need some game expert to come to classroom and help in these teaching practices.
Is there some, I don't know if the right word, discrepancy or disagreement about this issue, or is there a common? Do every researcher agree that learning should be playful, or learning is usually playful when it's like this? I'm just trying to get to the point that if this is actually the fact, then how the heck do we have these kind of schools?
How do we, what?
Why the hell do we have these kind of schools?
Why?
And this is was Marko Koskinen who was asking that.
Maybe no. This is the only one, not only one to teach. Of course not. This is one part. We need rote learning. Do you mean that?
No. I mean, if we really agree that learning should be playful most of the time, and in schools it usually isn't. Mm-hmm. Then, I just getting to the point that if research shows one thing and the practice shows totally the different opposites, basically, why is that way, and why can't we take this playful or this research results into the schools?
Why can't we take? I can't give you answers for that.
Isn't that so? Mikko, I will come to you. Is it so that it doesn't matter what kind of equipments we use? We must construct the whole curriculum and the system in the school, which is a big picture from the society, and offer these offerings, as Nicola says, of the bigger picture, and let them to inquire and study and invest the reality, but that way that they share, that they käsittelee sitä, mikä se on? Conceptualize and so on. And it doesn't really matter what kind of equipments we have. Something fits for another fits for somebody else. And the whole picture is that teachers need the equipments which fits themselves, and different learners need different equipments which fits in their learning styles and so on. And the point of your presentation, I think it's something like Edgar H. presented a few years ago, business transformation theory. There was a melting, moving, and frozen. Simply. Isn't that there's best solution as we know so far? What's happening in the nodes in the between different solutions, that how we smell, and let them to show what's going on here, what can we do, and what can we learn in here, and then support them to find the right solutions and right way to know, right way to share, right way to cooperate. Is it a game or is it something else? It doesn't matter if they learn to think, if they learn to share, and so on, and so on, and so on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to frame that for a second. So this discussion about whether or not games do anything different or interesting compared to other methods is a very rich discussion as well. And I'm immediately reminded of a very famous debate that's taken place in educational media between Richard Clark and Robert Kozma. And that it was maybe 15 papers that went back and forth around this topic to say, do certain kinds of media, they don't use technology, but media, allow for new and different kinds of education, or are all media, that would be the question. And Clark takes the attitude that no, it's all about teaching method. It doesn't matter what technologies we use. It's all about how the method of instruction works. Kozma takes a different approach and actually says, no, it does matter a lot. That there are things that you can only do in certain medias. And this would be the side that I would take personally. It would mean, like from an earlier slide I put up, to say that a flight simulator is the only way to do a certain kind of learning. And there isn't another way to mock that up with a book in a classroom. And there isn't a way to mock that up with a role play. You need certain things have different affordances. So I think the question then comes up, what affordances do games have? So I think that's an easier question than defining games and defining play. I've studied a little bit about that, and that's a big hot mess to define what a game even is. But to say what do games afford that no other media does, I think we could get an on-ramp there. But I'll leave it there. I have a lot of opinions, but...
Yeah, and I think that the main point is, like this figure can illustrate, that these caps during the school time should respond or correspond with the life outside the school some way. Tools can be whatever there are.
Sorry, could I just ask for clarification on this slide? Are you saying that because students play games in their leisure time, they're going to want to learn by playing games as well?
No, but, but maybe this is one example of the gaps. Whatever they are doing on like, or how they are learning nowadays in their free time, it have to correspond not only to games, but the way like they are encased in learning. This is one perspective.
Some other point that I was thinking about earlier when you're talking, and I completely agree with everything that you're saying about playful learning, particularly this sort of exploratory, creative attitude, and I think that's really important. But I think before we can get playful learners, we need to get playful teachers. And before we get playful teachers, we need to get playful teacher educators.
Yeah.
And this is really where the problem kind of starts.
Yeah, I agree.
I work with a lot of teacher educators.
Yeah, and the term...
Not very, no.
And in fact, we are talking about learning in general. It don't need the playful to front of the word. It's about learning, and learning everywhere. It's now the main research area, and very interesting.
There's some comments in Adobe Connect. For example, Malik Hyltoft, who is a former headmaster of the Östersko school in the Hobro in Denmark, and he asked or say that I EduLARP at Östersko. We often have students co-create parts of the game, but have had trouble with the whole design on student hand, except when creation was the real goal. But then gameplay lagged behind quite a lot. And the second one, we have effective way to make rote learning playful too. In my tests, refer to them as game engine. Game engine.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
Is it okay that we now stop, because I have to run to next seminar?
No, we keep you here the rest of the evening. Okay. I think we thank you, and we'll meet later together. Thank you.
Thank you.